Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. And y'all, this is the Season 4 finale of the Rossifari podcast, which is really exciting. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. But before we do that, a couple of quick reminders. Rossifari Zoo News is a crowd-sourced zoo news program, so if you see anything that you think would be zoo news worthy, go ahead and tag me in it on socials at Rossifari or on TikTok at RossifariPod, or email it to me, rossifaripod@gmail.com. And when you send something in, whether I use it or not, I will say your name at the end of the episode. So, we start off with an update on my life, which is that my parents and Miles are visiting me and Zoe in Buffalo this week.
Actually, we will start off with an update on my life, which is that my Grammy and Grampy and I are visiting my dad and Zoe in Buffalo this week.
That's what I said, but okay. So, anyway, what did we do yesterday?
We went to Barnes & Noble and Dad bought me 2 books.
No, buddy, no. Stuff that the podcast listeners will care about?
Oh, right. Well, we went to the Seneca Park Zoo, and I got to see a feeding of the new baby red panda. It's so cute. It's so tiny, it hasn't even opened its eyes yet. That was a really great zoo.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Miles officially endorses the Seneca Park Zoo. But moving on from that, this is the last episode of the season. And every season, I have taken the time to talk to y'all about what I am planning when the next season drops in a few days, since I don't really take breaks. But so I'm going to take a minute to do that now. And the truth is, I really like the podcast and where the podcast is, and y'all seem to like it too. Amazing things continue to happen, and I'm already so excited about some of the episodes I have recorded and some of the commitments I have from facilities to be on. It's going to be a wild ride. Get it? Wild? Because...
Dad, no!
Okay. Anyway, with me thinking the podcast is in a great place, my focus this season is going to be on turning Rossifari into more of a one-stop shop for all things zoos and aquariums. The interviews will continue, zoo news will continue, but I've been assembling an incredible team of people to help me with other things. At some point during the next few months, my website will be getting a complete redesign. It's going to be going from the home of the podcast to so much more than that. I'm going to start to put together a database of each facility that I've visited, starting with the ones that have appeared on the podcast. My goal is to provide you with information about every facility, from the basics to fun stuff like my favorite animals there, my favorite local coffee shops, the restaurants I've eaten at, and the hotels I've stayed at in the area, etc. My goal is that by the end of this upcoming season, anyone who wants to visit a zoo will head to rossifari.com to make the trip extra special for them. And also, after many requests, I am going to try to launch a monthly newsletter as part of this effort. Look, I'm not going to lie, it won't be much, but it'll be a way to stay in touch and to find out what's going on, even if the algorithm stops showing you my content on whatever social media pages you're following me on. And actually, speaking of social media, I'm working on an increased social media presence and working with an SEO/online marketing expert to try to grow Rossifari into a bigger name so that we can share these incredible animals and the incredible humans that take care of them with a wider audience. Oh, and finally, I will be releasing Rossifari merch this season.
And I'm going to help design it.
I never agreed to that.
Well, I just said it on the podcast, so now it's official.
That is not how this works.
Yes, it is. And I know that because I just said it on the podcast. So now it's official. By the way, everyone, stay tuned all the way to the credits on this one. There's a funny bit that doesn't involve me, but it is worth sticking around for. And with all of that said, it's time for...
Time for Zoo News. Time for Zoo News.
All right, so we are going to start off this week with our headline story. And I want to talk about something that I bet most of you didn't see this one at all this week. In fact, it's a small story as far as my Zoo News headline stories go, but I think it's a really important one, so let's dive in. Okay, I don't know if you know this at all, but I go to the Greensboro Science Center. Like, a lot. Like, a lot. What's that, you do know? Huh, imagine that. Well, okay, anyway, I bring that up because every time I drive to the good old GSC, where they still refuse to give me a volunteer hoodie, which I really love because the artwork on it is incredible, but which they refuse to give me for the absolutely ridiculous reason that I don't, in fact, volunteer there, and as such don't deserve one, even though it is really cool. And I think the main reason I don't get to get one is that the person in charge of them, Kelsey, who is legitimately an incredible person and who I like spending time with, but who also really likes to bust my chops a lot, has just decided that she can and will and should lord this power over me for all eternity because someone needs to put me in my place and not just give in because I'm being charming, even though, let's be honest, I'm very charming when I want to be. And I always am extra charming when I'm trying to get a hoodie, and maybe that's why I don't get one. Maybe I try too hard. Maybe I should be less charming. But no, damn it, I'm a naturally charismatic person, and I don't think I should have to turn that off just for a hoodie, even though it is a really good hoodie, and I really want one really badly. And honestly, I have considered trying to actually just volunteer at the facility just to get one, even though that would be ridiculous because it's like a 6-hour drive from my house in Harrisburg and 10 hours from my place in Buffalo, and I need to get a hotel room each time I visit, which costs way more than a hoodie. And wait, I'm sorry. What was I saying? Right. Okay. Yeah. So every time I drive to my beloved Greensboro Science Center, often shivering because I'm cold because of my lack of a hoodie, but that's a different story, I drive past an old Food Lion building that just sticks out like a sore thumb because it's just old and in bad shape. But it turns out the building was just purchased by a Florida-based realty group for the price of $5.2 million. And I mention this here because it is such a great example of the economic effects of a growing zoo or aquarium or science center and, that it can have on the community. The group that bought the land did so in large part because of the fact that the Greensboro Science Center is continuing to grow, as their master plan has them positioned to make the GSC one of the top 5 tourist destinations in the entire state of North Carolina, thanks in large part to Rossifari. I'm kidding, but still. And that's just incredible. Bringing value to an old, gross supermarket location just because of its proximity to the Greensboro Science Center is such a great illustration of the way incredible facilities have a positive impact on the area around them outside of the obvious, science education, entertainment value, and other stuff that we talk about on this podcast all the time. And that led me to wonder, what is the economic impact of zoos and aquariums on the areas around them? Turns out it's pretty huge. The AZA-accredited zoos and aquariums in the United States alone are credited with directly contributing $24 billion to the economy as of a 2019 study, which was up from $16 billion in 2011. Now, those are both amazing numbers, and the fact that it went up from 16 to 24 billion in just 8 years is extra impressive. In comparison, all professional sports combined are estimated to add $14.3 billion to the economy. It's also well known that more people visit zoos and aquariums than all sporting events combined. And I know that may seem like a strange comparison, but they are 2 of the bigger entertainment destinations that have facilities around the country. And I also think it's worth mentioning because sports are so prevalent. Imagine if every time you walked through a mall or something like that, you'd see as many people rocking zoo shirts and tree kangaroo hats as you see wearing replica jerseys and team baseball caps and such. But getting off this sports tangent, a study done in 2010 showed that zoos and aquariums were not only important to their local economies, but that the jobs created at these facilities were incredibly stable because zoos and aquariums tend to stay open during economic downturns. And while there are obviously plenty of seasonal jobs during the summer and stuff, they also have a whole bunch of positions that need to be staffed year-round. Also, accredited zoos rarely close down and frequently keep the same vendors year after year, providing stability not just for animal care staff, but for the people who work retail, concessions, etc. Now, I mentioned that 24 billion number before, and I said that is a direct contribution to the economy. And what I meant by direct contribution is the fact that it only accounts for the jobs created at zoos, the money spent at zoos, the taxes contributed by zoos, etc. But there is an additional impact that zoo visitors have on the areas around the zoos. For instance, coffee shops and Indian restaurants around zoos I visit always get quite the boost, and that's just from me. And those numbers are not counted in that 24 billion. The very smart people who figure this stuff out have determined that zoos add somewhere between $2 billion and $3 billion to the economy through this zoo tourism, be it people traveling to zoos or even just locals hitting the coffee shop near the zoo before heading through the gates and then being mad they have to get rid of their lids and straws. But yeah, so that's a couple additional billion on top of the numbers that we were talking about. It is also estimated that these purchases keep stores and restaurants open and functioning well to the tune of an additional $5.4 billion in economic impact. All of these numbers are based on the 213 AZA accredited institutions in the U.S. and don't even touch on all of the ZAA or the unaccredited facilities in the country. So yeah, it's about 213 facilities providing roughly $8 billion in indirect economic impact, along with the $24 billion direct impact that makes zoos and aquariums a huge part of their local economies and, frankly, a big part of our national economy as well. And of course, none of this has anything to do with why we actually love zoos and aquariums, but I thought it was really interesting to see how much of an economic impact they make. All inspired by the incredible impact the growth of the Greensboro Science Center is having on the local community there, which obviously makes me very happy, even though it could make me happier if they gave me a dang hoodie. And just as a quick follow-up to this, I need to tell y'all this because this is how serious of a thing the hoodie thing has become. I wrote this early this week. I often do my headline stories early unless some breaking news thing happens so that I can do research and all kinds of stuff. So I wrote this, including the thing about really wanting one of their volunteer hoodies and my little rant there, on Monday evening. And I tell you that because on Tuesday at 2:46 p.m., with no one having any clue that this was going to be in this week's episode, Becca sent me a video of Kelsey just taunting me, showing me the hoodies that I cannot have. You cannot make this stuff up. This is it. I love the Rossifari community so much. I love Greensboro Science Center so much. And I just needed to let everyone know this is such an ongoing thing that even after I wrote that dumb rant, I then got this silly video. So anyway, okay, that brings us to our births for the week. The Bronx Zoo has announced the birth of a Matchie's tree kangaroo Joey. The Joey was born at the end of December, but quickly crawled into mom's pouch to continue developing. The Joey is now big enough to start poking out of the pouch and can be seen at the zoo. I am so excited. I visited when the last Joey started to emerge back in 2021, and dang it, I think I'm going to have to go back soon to see this one as well. The Kansas City Zoo has announced the hatching of a new Humboldt penguin chick named Marlin. He was born to mom Coco T and dad Leo, who is a first-time father. Both parents are doing an excellent job taking care of the little one. The Philadelphia Zoo has announced the birth of a baby Sumatran orangutan. Mom Tua is doing such a great job taking care of the little one that the zoo hasn't been able to determine the gender yet, and thus are holding off on naming as well. For the second time in as many years, a Chinese pangolin has been born at the Prague Zoo. Now, this ties into last week's episode in which I talked about the fact that pangolin births in human care haven't been the most successful, but it sounds like the Prague Zoo is one of the facilities figuring it out, and hopefully sharing the information with other zoos around the globe. I really want to see the human-based population of pangolins grow for lots of reasons. Anyway, Zoo New England has announced the birth of a baby colobus monkey born at their Stone Zoo facility. Baby is already clinging to mom and getting carted around their habitat by her, and is easy to spot because of its bright white fur that will change to black with white accoutrement as it ages. Oh, Miles, why don't you take this one?
Okay. Zoo Tampa has announced the hatching of 3 roseate spoonbills.
And why am I having you share this story?
Because when I was a little kid, you and Zoe took me to Zoo America, and I was too little to care about most of the animals, but I was fascinated by the spoonbills.
Correct. You remember that, huh? I'm surprised because you were so young.
No, Dad, I don't remember that, but you wrote it here, and I'm really good at reading.
All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Every Thursday, let's get skin to it with dermatologist Dr. Sandy Skotnicki and personal stylist and beauty enthusiast Marlo Sutton for a new episode of Skin to It, where we guide you through the maze of skincare and cut through that noise to help you achieve your healthiest skin. Skin to It, a podcast brought to you by Bioderma.
Okay, and that brings us to our deaths for the week, including a little bit of my soul after that response. But anyway, Smithsonian's National Zoo has said goodbye to Summer, the California sea lion who called the zoo home for most of the 19 years of her life, as she was abandoned by her mom while she was still a pup. She was known for her strong and independent personality, and she always kept her trainers on their toes. Despite being strong when it came to advocating for her own wishes, Summer was a sweetheart of a sea lion, especially when it came to younger sea lions, which she was very gentle with. In fact, she was always the first adult introduced to the juveniles at the zoo. She will be greatly missed. The San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance has said goodbye to Winston, the 52-year-old western lowland gorilla that called the safari park his home. Winston was one of the oldest silverbacks in the world and was known as the protector of his family. His gentle presence will be missed by fans, keepers, and the troop that loved and trusted him. Bosco, a 15-year-old serval who lived at the Oklahoma City Zoo, has passed away. Bosco suffered from cancer, and in February, the veterinary team at the zoo removed a salivary gland tumor, hoping that would be the end of the issue. It was not, however, as the cancer returned aggressively in June. At 15 years old, Bosco was already past the life expectancy of servals, which is 10 to 12 years. Sending love to the team at the zoo. The Denver Zoo has announced the passing of Toano, a bald eagle who suddenly passed away earlier this year. He was believed to be at least 24 years old, though his exact age is unknown. Sadly, he suffered from heart disease, and while the veterinary team at the zoo had been giving him amazing treatment, the disease ultimately prevailed. Now, the life expectancy of a bald eagle in human care is 16 years, so the team at the Denver Zoo did an incredible job keeping him healthy and, alive, all the way to at least 24. Sky, a beloved reticulated giraffe that called the Sacramento Zoo home, has passed away at the incredible age of 26, spending 25 of those years at the Sacramento Zoo. As she aged, Sky faced numerous health challenges, but thanks to the incredible relationships her care team forged with her, she was able to participate in her health care procedures, including taking joint supplements and pain meds, cold laser therapy, hot and cold packs, and pulse electromagnetic field therapy. An incredible relationship that led to an incredible long life. The Columbus Zoo has said goodbye to Blue, a 17-year-old kangaroo who spent 15 of those years at the zoo. At the age of 17, Blue was the oldest kangaroo to ever call Columbus home. Unfortunately, Blue developed unresolvable dental issues that made it hard for her to masticate properly, leading to a decrease in her muscle mass. As there was no way to solve these issues without causing Blue great discomfort, the correct decision was made to humanely euthanize her. This sassy lady will be greatly missed. And then, all deaths are tough, but this one is particularly heartbreaking. Renee, a 31-year-old chimpanzee at the Edinburgh Zoo, has passed away after it was severely injured when a fight broke out amongst the troop. A second chimpanzee was also injured badly enough that it needed surgery, but that chimp did survive. Keepers did attempt to intervene as much as they can with a species that is protected contact and could easily rip human faces off, but by the time the fight was over, the damage had been done. And as sad of a story as this is, it's important to remember that this is what chimpanzees do. The only difference between this and what would have happened to these animals in the wild is that it's likely the second chimp would have also died from its injuries because there wouldn't have been an incredible veterinary team standing by, able to, perform surgery and stuff. So, sending all my love to the team at the zoo. And then moving on from births and deaths, the National Aquarium in Baltimore is going to be opening a new exhibit on August 9th, and it's not just any exhibit. It's a floating exhibit. The exhibit is called Harbor Wetlands, and it recreates a salt marsh habitat on a floating platform that spans 10,000 feet in Inner Harbor. The floating platform has actually gotten an influx of visitors already, and by that I mean the best kind. Animals! 2 river otters, a diamondback terrapin, and mallard ducks have all explored the new area so far, with the ducks even laying eggs. Weirdly, the otters did not lay eggs. Anyway, I am excited to see this new space and what comes from it. Around 130 workers have walked off their jobs and gone on strike at Granby Zoo in Quebec. Among those striking are administrative staff, animal care technicians, mechanics, and other unionized workers. The union has been careful to organize the strike in a way that will not impact the day-to-day care or the health of the animals at the zoo. According to the union, the strike started because of incredibly slow collective bargaining negotiations, with the union feeling that management was stalling greatly and kept putting off salary discussions, the most important part of the negotiations, in the agreement. The last CBA expired at the end of last year, so the fact that we are more than half a year removed from that, and salary negotiations haven't even started yet, leads me to believe the union's take on this topic. As of now, the zoo continues to be open, but is unable to offer daily presentations and animal feedings, and has had to cancel their Zoo at Night program. I'll be curious to see how this situation develops and how far the union is willing to go with their strike. Whenever you have a passion career, it's always harder to get a strike to be successful, because at the end of the day, zookeepers, vets, human doctors, nurses, all those people don't want to let the care of their patients, loved animals, humans, whatever, suffer. But I am sending solidarity to the team in Quebec. Me. I'm not going to announce every time a zoo gets a new animal because that would be ridiculous. Also me. Cheyenne Mountain Zoo has a red panda for the first time in over 20 years. Woo! What can I say? I'm biased. The red panda at the zoo is named Cora, but is not the legendary Cora we all know and love from Columbus, who is still at Columbus. In fact, this Cora is spelled with a C, while Columbus Cora is spelled with a K. I am so excited that Cheyenne Mountain Zoo has a red panda now. And actually, speaking of new animals, and also speaking of the Columbus Zoo has welcomed 2 new Tasmanian devils named Tori and Lena. I'm so excited that devils are back at the zoo, and I also mention this because they transferred them there from the Toledo Zoo, which, as I mentioned in a recent episode, has become a hub for getting Tassies to other AZA facilities. It really makes me happy to know that Tassies are back at Columbus, because I love visiting them there. Okay, and actually, while we're doing this, we've got one more new animal announcement, because it also ties into a recent zoo news story. Zoo New England has announced that cougars are returning to Stone Zoo. In particular, Maple and Willow, two sisters who were rescued and rehabilitated at, you guessed it, the Oakland Zoo, will find their forever home in Boston at the Stone Zoo. I sometimes think every AZA accredited zoo in the US is going to end up with mountain lions thanks solely to the efforts of the Oakland Zoo, and I am here for it. I also just love hearing about how many incredible facilities like Stone Zoo are willing to open their doors to these incredible cats. The Akron Zoo has received $2 million in state funding to build a new, modernized veterinary hospital building. The building is slated to open in 2026, and although the $2 million is a great start, the project is projected to cost just under $12 million when all is said and done. With plans for continued growth at the zoo, this is a cost that is very worth it, as veterinary care is one of the most important aspects in ensuring the welfare of the animals at the zoo. The zoo has released a graphic of what the hospital will look like, and honestly, it is beautiful. I cannot wait to head back to Akron and to see the final result. The Little Rock Zoo has announced that Sophie, a beloved elderly Asian elephant at the zoo, has entered hospice care due to the fact that she is suffering from incurable pyometra, an infection that infects the uterus. I love the transparency of this announcement and the fact that people are being given a chance to say goodbye to this animal that has been loved at the zoo since she joined up there back in 2013. Interestingly, Sophie has actually been living with her pyometra for the past 7 years, which is really amazing since the disease usually claims an elephant's life within the first year. Keepers have noticed physical changes that make them think that the disease is finally taking its final toll on Sophie, however. I will be curious to see what happens to the remaining elephants at the zoo, as this leaves only 2 elderly elephants there. But I am very confident that, the zoo will do whatever is in their best interest. And last but not least, in zoo news this week, the Brookfield Zoo has announced their Next Century Plan, which is a campus plan and more. It is a 15-year plan with a 30-year strategic vision that plans to transform the Brookfield Zoo campus with dynamic animal habitats, updated facilities, and enhanced educational experiences, while also focusing on making the zoo a beacon of worldwide conservation efforts and conservation education. Yep, definitely stole that text directly from their PR team, in case you couldn't tell. But it's good text. That's why I did. The zoo will be doubling the size of their experience footprint within existing zoo property, creating immersive habitats, increasing accessibility, integrating more sustainable practices into the daily routines at the zoo, and so much more. This is going to be a huge undertaking that will cost an estimated $500 million by the time all is said and done, and I, for one, cannot wait to see what comes of it. Brookfield is that's one of those places that you travel to go see already, and these next steps sound absolutely incredible. So excited.
Conservation! Conservation! News time! Oh yeah!
We recently talked about the largest mass stranding of dolphins to ever take place, and now the same thing has happened for pilot whales. A pod of 77 whales washed ashore in Orkney in the UK, and I'm sure I said that wrong, I'm going to hear about it, but whatever, where they all were found dead. By the time rescuers and scientists showed up, only 12 were still alive, all of which were euthanized after refloating efforts failed. As of now, it is impossible to say for sure what caused the event, though experts believe it's possible that just one whale ran into trouble, possibly even running aground, and the entire rest of the pod tried to help and died in the effort. And along with the emotions of this story, it also leads to an interesting follow-up question. What do you do when suddenly there are 77 dead whales on the beach in Scotland? These whales can be 19 feet long each. Well, the proper authorities try to do a post-mortem exam on every single whale, not just to determine what happened at the end, but what they can tell about the lives of the whales from the examinations. These are often done on the beach, with the beach closed for a time to accommodate the scientists. Then, the bodies need to be removed. Sometimes the bodies are incinerated right on the beach. Sometimes they are actually just removed to landfills. And sometimes the decision is made to remove some of the bodies that are in better shape to labs for their postmortems before that happens, instead of doing them on the beach. There's also the option to just bury the carcass, like right there, like in the beach. Regardless of what is finally decided upon, the bones are usually collected and held in the collections of scientific institutes and or museums. I know this is a sad story, and I know that might be a weird way to look at it, but I mean, I don't know, the logistics of animal stuff is really interesting. As far as having one of the, if not the largest mass wash-up of whales shortly after dolphins, the world's falling apart. I don't really have more to say about it than that, but it definitely sucks. On a happier note, Voyager's Wolf Project has recently deployed 2 solar-powered GPS collars on wolves, the first 2 wolves to ever have solar-powered collars. This is particularly exciting because keeping functioning GPS collars on wolves, or any wildlife, is a challenge because of batteries. The larger they are, the more an effect they can have on the animal. And the smaller they are, the less amount of time they will function, and also the less data they will be able to collect and transmit, and all of that. So solar-powered collars avoid both of these issues, and hopefully these 2 will work well long-term, paving the way for the use of the technology on more wolves and other species, and providing more detailed data over longer periods that will help us understand the habits of wild animals better than we already do. This is a huge win for conservation. And last but not least in this section, sea turtle nests are starting to hatch in the United States, with the first babies starting to show up in the Carolinas and Florida. This is a friendly reminder that if you're in a sea turtle-y area, to keep your beachfront properties' lights off, keep beaches clean and free of litter, and to not approach baby sea turtles if you see them. I know, the temptation is strong. You don't have to tell me, but don't do it. It's not worth it. Cool. In other news, this was a small story a while ago, but I know that I had a lot of y'all reaching out and checking in on it. But so there was a county park zoo in New Jersey that was accredited by nothing and was a disaster and was flooding, and animals were poorly taken care of there. And there was a big push to get it removed and to get it shut down and animals moved out and all of those things. And there was a lot of success. A lot of animals went to other parks. Turned out some of them also had the same issues, blah, blah, blah. It was a whole thing. Overall, there was a lot of success. But that saga is finally over. The Johnson Park Zoo scenario is done. All of the zoos, all of the problematic places have been closed down. The wildlife warriors who fought to help those animals succeeded, and this is just incredible news and makes me so happy. I love that while there are all these, quote, animal rights activists that are frustrating and horrible and trying to, shut down places like the Cincinnati Zoo and Cheyenne Mountain Zoo and stuff like that, and I hate them, I love that there are also really stinking good, wonderful people out there who get it and just try to fight the bad places. And those warriors deserve all the props in the world. So congratulations to everyone involved in that effort, including those of you who listen here and contributed your voices. It's been a couple years, but the work is done. Yay! Also, just in other news here, animals just keep getting loose in Pennsylvania. I don't even know what's going on, but a 300-pound rescue pig named Dorothy briefly got loose on the Schuylkill Expressway near King of Prussia. This is actually right near where I used to live when I lived in the Philly area, and was just kind of wandering along being a pig on a highway. Didn't get turned into ham though, so that's impressive. And also going along with that, a longhorn escaped and was wandering down the road in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is having a problem with just animals escaping and being on roads, and it's a weird trend, y'all, but hey, PA, get your crap together, please. Oh, and one final thing in other news, just because I'm feeling it a little bit. So I tried to cheat last week a little bit. I'm not going to lie. So, okay, making zoo news takes a long time. Like, Zoo News is easily the most work that I do for the podcast. It's more work than everything else combined. Even with y'all sending stories, I still have to read them all, every single one of them. A lot of times I go and find second or third sources to make sure I understand what's going on, even for the basic stuff. And it just takes a long time. I script at least some of it. I'm currently working off script, but whatever. And then there's the recording and the editing and all of that. So it takes multiple hours every week to produce this episode, and I'm happy to do it. And I learned so much. And honestly, I wish I could make 2 episodes a week because y'all send so much amazing content. And but it's cool. It's worth it. But last week was a particularly busy week for me, even for me, who is always busy. And I finally gave into temptation, and this is going to shock a lot of you because I don't like AI very much, as you know, but I went to ChatGPT and I typed in a really good, really specific prompt, asking it to basically write me a Zoo News script for the news from AZA accredited facilities of the last 10 days. I was very specific in how I phrased it, and I thought I would give it a shot. And I didn't expect to use it, but I thought maybe if I could copy paste and just Rossifari it and do some writing around it, it would at least cut down on my prep work. So imagine my excitement when it spit out a pretty cool looking script. And I went and I read the first story and was excited to see that it was about the red panda cubs that were born in Moscow recently. You know, the twin red pandas that were born in... Yeah. If you're wondering why you don't know what I'm talking about right now, it's because there were no twin red pandas born in Moscow. I saw it and I was like, holy crap, how did I miss this? How did all of the people who send me stories miss this? And then I went and I looked and none of us missed it. There's nothing. Nowhere. I Googled every way I could think to search. There's just nothing. It was just a completely fabricated story. And there was a lot more of that going on as I continued to attempt, to read through the script. I used literally none of it. It was such a futile effort. But I tell you that to tell you this. I know that I sound like an old man when I rant about the negative effects of social media or other modern technologies like AI. And I love a lot of technology. I am on a very new computer and iPad and iPhone and Apple Watch, and I love my tech, and I do. But there are downsides, especially to parts of it. And I got to tell y'all, more and more websites are starting to just be written by AI. It's just a fact. You can check this out yourself. And while I think a lot of what it does is actually pretty incredible, I mean, the script itself, it wouldn't have worked as a Zoo News script because y'all know me. But if this was some one-off project where I had to create a zoo newscast, the script was super well written. The transitions were great, all kinds of stuff. But y'all, it was fake. It was completely fake. The lead story was red pandas born in Moscow. And no, I did not include anything about red pandas in my prompt. I know what you're thinking, but I didn't. It's just made up. I don't even know what to do. So I'm just telling you this because as we go through looking at conservation stuff and as we go through these sources, that we see online, it's gotten worse and worse, and it's easier and easier to see a website and be like, oh, this looks legit, and it was written by AI, and it's wrong. And so just be aware of that fact. I know this isn't fully animal newsy type stuff, but it kind of is because, there's a lot out there about conservation and animal rights and all that stuff. So just be aware and just know that every episode of Zoo News and every interview episode is scripted entirely by me, for better or worse. Probably worse, but at least I don't make up panda births.
Animal, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal, animal holidays.
All right, it is July, which is Plastic-Free July, National Bison Month, Parks and Recreation Month, and Wild About Wildlife Month. Then for our individual days, we have July 20th, which is Vaquita Day and launches National Moth Week. The 21st is Andean Bear Day and launches Coral Reef Awareness Week and National Zookeeper Week. And the 23rd is the official anniversary of the Rossifari podcast launching way back in 2020. Like I mentioned, here comes season 5, y'all. And there you have it, folks. Another episode and another season of Rossifari Zoo News is done. Amazing. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, and Jenny Owens. I'd like to remind you all that you can support the pod, especially as we go into our big push to grow everything in season 5 by going to patreon.com/Rossifari for as little as $3 a month. You can support the pod. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone who contributed this week, including Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley Croninger, Kelly Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Anne Yoshioka, Dr. Laura Schenk, Andrew King, Lizard Dunlevy, Crystal Chapman, Nikki Morley, Amanda K. Berg, Matt Patford, Marianne Rossi, Jay Meredith, Sherry Weiss, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, the Malenskys, Jacob Zinn, Rowena White, Miles Rossi, and
Hey, John.
Hey, wait, what? Did you guys hear something?
John.
What the heck? Elizabeth Charles, what are you doing in my recording studio all the way from the UK?
Just to say that not everyone in the UK has a posh accent. I'm from the north of England. I sound more like Sean Bean than King Charles. And this is still me using me posh voice. If I went full dialect, I'd say, "Hadaway, what you on about, man? I didn't talk like that, you know."
Those were not real words. Were they? Yeah, maybe they were.
For Americans who've been here, the north of England is the part you saw from the train between London and Edinburgh. Bye now.
That was so much fun. Oh, I like Elizabeth Charles so much. Thanks for playing along, and thank you all. What a great way to wrap up season 4 of the Rossifari podcast. Other than, of course, to remind you all that the words Newsy credits backwards are Steiderk Yuswen. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.
Because when I was a little kid, you and Zoe
Let's restart that.